across industry, including from consultancy to banking and to startups, either working as a product manager or providing some form of support from an external point of view, right? So for today, we'll be talking through a couple of things, right? First of all, starting with a basic foundation of what is product management. I'm sure most of us already know that. Then we'll talk about data, the two main types of data, qualitative and quantitative. Then what exactly are some of the key things that we need to measure, right? And also talk through metrics and roadmap. So how these metrics or things you've measured, how they'll fit into our roadmap, right? And the importance of those different metrics. Then we'll also talk about how to establish feedback loop with our customers and why that is important, right? There's also a part of the importance of data in decision making. Then we'll talk about the tools that you can use to collect data. Then, of course, we can have open the floor for some questions. Right. So the first thing here is basically starting what is product management. So I like to see product management or product managers as being a captain of a ship, really. And basically, a captain decides where the ship should go, ensure it is equipped for that journey, and also being able to navigate challenges along the way. Similarly, if we take that analogy and bring it to product management, right? A product manager really decides what a product, which is basically going to which basically can be an app or or an hardware product, really should do, what that product should do, ensure that it is built correctly. And of course, in the process of ensuring it is built correctly, there's a part of collaborating across multiple stakeholders, either external or internal. And also, the product manager addresses any issues to make sure it meets the needs of the users. Right. So that leads us to data. Of course, data helps us build products, right? Whether it is through talking to customers or looking at dashboard, right? But let's start from the core of data. What's the definition of data in the context of product management? So data is basically a piece or collection of facts about your customers or your users, right? And to help us understand this, data, there are two major type of data, the qualitative and the quantitative data. Right. So for the qualitative data, it's basically descriptive in nature. It basically gives us a deeper understanding of our users' feelings and motivation. So it provides us insight into why and how these people are using our products, right? It can also be collected through interviews, observations, and open-ended surveys, right? And of course, examples are opinions, feelings, and emotions. Then for quantitative are usually numerical in nature, right? They're easy to measure. They are basically easy to measure, right? They provide insight into how many or how much, right? And they are collected through very structured surveys, experiments, and analytics. Then very simple examples are age, weight, and test scores. I mean, for example, if this is about an examination, right? So that's essentially what quantitative data basically speaks to. Right. Then this brings us again to now we understand what data is, the different type of data, right? Now it's there's a point of deciding what to measure. So you've built a product, right? And how do you know what exactly to measure, right? So the things listed here are basically to help us start, right? Of course, there are still some nuances around these things, right? So um the easiest way to think about measuring product, right? You think about it in these four different pillars that are listed here. So you think about it through user engagement, retention rates, conversion rates, and customer satisfaction. Right. So for user engagement, right, how often and how deeply users interact with your product. So when you build a product, right, you have to think about how what are the value. So you have to basically pinpoint what are the value creation moments, right? That will basically so that's basically how you define your user engagement, right? And at this point, I'd like to call in that login, number of users logging in cannot be a user engagement type of metrics, right? So user engagement really has to be, am I providing, are users getting value for this product? So for example, an example here is if users, so let's assume this is a music application, right? If users frequently open your music app and listen for hours, they're highly engaged. So that means this user is basically listening to different playlists, listening to different music, right? So you can basically, as a product manager, you know that users are getting value for from your product, right? Then of course there's a part for retention rates, right? So retention rate is essentially how your users are coming back to your product. So the percentage of users who keep coming back to use your product over time, right? So an example again of this is if 8 out of 10 people who downloaded your game or application really are still playing it in a month time or a month later, you have a high retention rate, right? So that means people are finding value and coming back to your product maybe daily or weekly, or I mean, it's very flexible. So the way you measure this is very flexible. And it could be if a user logs in and play a game for maybe 30 minutes for for 30 minutes, maybe in a week, once a week, right? You can use that to measure as, oh, this is my retention rate of, okay, 8 out of 10 people that visited this for this particular week actually coming back to use this particular product, right? Then there's also the part of conversion rate, right? This is basically the percentage of users who take a specific desired action, right? So if you have, just let's use an online store, an e-commerce website, for example, right? So if 5 out of 100 visitors to your online store, right, make a purchase, right, your conversion rate is about 5%, right, which is basically a sweet spot for, I mean, by global standard, right, 5% conversion rate is a sweet spot for an online store. So exactly. So this is another key metrics that as a product manager you should keep an eye out for, right? Because it directly impacts the business goal of that particular business. So conversion is a very important metrics. Then there's those parts for customer satisfaction. This is really where it comes into qualitative bit of things. The other three are largely quantitative, which are basically numerical in nature, right? But for customer satisfaction, which is basically qualitative, really is how happy are users with your product, right? And this largely is through reviews, and you can get reviews through a lot of different um form, right? So it could be reviews on the App Store, it could be reviews from social media, it could be reviews from it could also be reviews for maybe a feedback form that you send out to your customers, right? So these are example of how you can also keep an eye out for what customers are saying about your product in public forums. Then this part of it is basically how these metrics, right, that you've measured, that you've set out to measure, how do you use them to basically, how do they impact the actual building of a product, right? So metrics are not just numbers, right? They actually shape how they're meant to shape your product roadmap, right? And basically, they help us prioritize features, align with different business objective, and as well as validate our assumptions. So, in terms of guiding products priorities for metrics, right? So, metrics help you determine what features or areas of the product should be focused on first, right? So, let's say we have a chat or let's assume you have a chat, an application that have a chat feature, right? And you notice that a lot of people are using the chat feature, right? Based on that data, right, you, of course, it's a no-brainer that you should look at how to improve the experience of that particular chat feature, or look into maybe laying in some form of ancillary services that can work seamlessly with the chat feature, right? Then, of course, this data also, it also helps to identify areas of improvement. So by the time you look at your dashboard, or you look at the feedback from customers, it can help you highlight parts of the product that are not performing well or causing user dissatisfaction, right? Then in terms of aligning with business goals, right? Another point of this is metrics. Basically ensures that the product direction, right, supports the broader objective of the company, right? So, for example, in the previous slides, where we talk about okay, conversion rate for an online store. Of course, that is something that basically impacts the business goal. So let's assume the business goal is, or we want to get about 6% conversion rates, for example, right? And you release a feature, right? And while you release a feature, right? And while you're keeping eye on the metrics, and also looking at how customers are coming to your online store and buying products. So what, as a product manager, what you should be looking at is this meeting the business goals of the company? Are we hitting the 6% conversion rate targets that the company has the company has set for itself, right? And again, on the flip side, so is, let's assume again an online store, right? You already have your conversion rate on tight, very tight, right? You have 5% conversion rate, or 6% or 7%. Then you release a feature, right? Or you made an improvement, and it starts to impact your conversion rate, or it starts to impact your business goal, or it starts to impact the conversion rate. Really, it brings it down from 6% to 4%, right? Data is only through data you'll be able to know that, okay, our conversion rate has dropped, and what was the last thing that was released. And basically it helps you to basically narrow down to the cause of that drop, and also gives an idea on how to solve that, right? Another bit of this is that it helps validate products assumption or hypothesis. So before making change, like by default, product managers have what's called product sense, right? So we have a lot of assumptions, hypothesis, which is basically largely comes from research, right? Research into what other people in different areas are doing, and of course you leverage into your experience working as a product manager, right? So to bring out some set of hypotheses and assumptions, right? But metrics can also help to confirm or refute those assumptions that you have as a product manager. Another important bit of data-driven product management is feedback loop, right? So you have to establish a feedback loop with your customers, right? And so give me a minute. So it's a very powerful tool, right? It's basically a continuous cycle of gathering feedback, analyzing it, and making improvements. And this ensures that the products you're working on evolve with user needs. So basically establishing this feedback loop, it's essentially puts your users at the center of whatever you're building, because at the end of the day, products you're building are for the end users. So for this loop, it starts with gathering feedback through different form of different ways of gathering feedback. So there's user interview, there's beta testing, there's feature survey, right? Then it goes to analyzing this data or analyzing this feedback, right? And of course, that comes with collaboration across different things, from research and design, and sometimes depending on your organization, you do that alone, right? But let's say for some larger organization, you can collaborate across research and design to analyze this feedback. Then you prioritize this feedback using any prioritization framework. So there are a lot of prioritization framework. There is the Moscow framework, and there is the value and effort framework, and a whole lot of other framework. So you use that to prioritize the feedback, and of course, and that feeds into the product roadmap. Then at the end of the day, you close that feedback loop. And the closing of feedback loop is basically, releasing that feature through that feature, they announce it through different forms, email, in-app notification, the social media. Then again, you start the loop again. So it keeps on going. It's basically an endless loop, right? And it helps to basically make your products better because you're always talking to your customers, not building with set of assumptions. You're talking to your customers to validate your assumption. Also talking to customers to also get basically understand how they use your product. Then the next part of this is the tools that for all these things that I've mentioned, right? There are different tools that can help you do this, right? And so for surveys and feedback forms, right? So you have the Google Forms, you have Survey Monkeys, and you have Qualtrics and a host of other platforms. So these are my personal favorites, right? Then there's also the analytics forms, or analytics platform. There's Google Analytics, there's the Mix Panel, which Ty had mentioned earlier. There's Hotjar and a whole lot of other analytics platforms that will help you deep dive into how users are using your platform, right? It basically allows you to know who is a user when a user signs up, right? Are there a lot of drop off, right? It also, I mean, for Hotjar, for example, does a screen record basically that you can watch it. You can basically watch that recording of how the user starts from login, buys the product, add it to carts, makes payments, and log out. Right. So it basically allows you understand if a user is finding it difficult to locate a particular feature, or a user is finding it difficult to navigate through your platform. So that's one of the very key advantage of using either of this platform, right? Then of course there's a user testing session, right? Of course, apart from the regular physical meetings or using platform like Google Meet or using now to get your users on the call, there are also some platforms that are built specifically for user testing, which are usertesting.com, Lookback, Maze.design, then Playbook UX. Then, just to recap all what I've talked through today, data-driven decisions lead to better products, right? Then there's also the part of continuous feedback and iteration are very crucial, which is the feedback loop. Then you have to find a balance between qualitative and quantitative data. Then collaboration and communication are very key for building a data-driven product. Well, that's basically all. So I can take questions from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bankole. That was very insightful. Thank you so much. If you have any question, please, I have a question though, so I'm going to ask my question. I'll use the privilege to ask my question. But if you have any question whatsoever, please do not hesitate to use the Q&A functionality of this particular chat room, or you can just put it in the chat and we'll pick it from there. So Bankole, I want to ask a question that is quite practical and that you can. I'm hoping you will be able to up me see from a, because I know you are the guru, so you up me see from a real life perspective of how I just got hired at Jumia, and Jumia being an e-commerce platform, or if I just go hire a Piggyvest, what should I be looking out for? So for me, that I'm a product manager at Jumia, the problem they've been having is a lot of people are abandoning their carts. So what should I do step by step? You could help me from the Jumia e-commerce product manager perspective, or I'm the product manager of a fintech app, and we know that we have a buy now pay later we have a buy now pay later feature on our application, and we see that people are not actually paying the way they should be paying back or at due time. So what are the things I can do to resolve this problem, because these are key things to move my organizations forward. So yes, could you please help me? We can start with the Jumia example.
Yes, so for the Jumia example, right, just to recap, basically it's around cart abandonment, right? And you basically want to drill down into why that is a recurring issue.
Yep, yep, that's it.
Yeah, so for being practical, right, as a product manager, I think the first thing to do is to spend a lot of time on the problem area, right? Basically understand the problem area, not really just jump into solution, right? So the first thing to do is to basically understand the user journey to that to the point of adding product to carts, right? So what exactly does that user journey looks like, right? So is it easy for users to add to carts, and after adding to carts, right? Is it easy for user to spot um the maybe to spot the cart icon, or to spot the cart the how to get to that cart and make a checkout, right? I know that's some of issues that a lot of people have experienced, me included, right? So on some platforms, right? So and with that, of course, you can use so there are two ways you can do this. So of course, you have to find a balance with qualitative and quantitative, right? So you can basically start with speaking to users, right? And for you to be able to identify those users, you need to be able to go through your analytics dashboard. So this an assumption is that a company like Jumia will have an analytics dashboard, right? That shows you how users navigate across, how users are using the product, right? So from the back end, or from any dashboard that you have, you can basically check um the how the exact users, the exact users that are facing this particular issue, right? And once you're able to narrow that down, of course you're able to maybe get like a feedback session with users and really understand what the issues are, or what some of the pain points are, in terms of why are there a lot of abandonment of cats, right? um then, of course, when you are able to get some of, I mean, my assumption again is that after these sessions, in terms of using your dashboard to get basically understand the problem and speak it to users, you're able to narrow down the exact issue. So if this is a navigation issue, or if this is a redesign issue, or if this is a maybe the customers are no longer interested issue, right? Or yeah, so that is around, that's essentially around how we think around resolving an issue like that in terms of abandonment of carts, is to basically look for a way to balance qualitative and quantitative usage of data. I don't know if that's clear enough.
Thank you so much. Yes, that is clear. You did justice to it. Thank you. There is a question in the chat room for you. Um, would you like me to read it?
Okay.
Yeah. How do I remain? It's from Agnes. Agnes says, how do I remain motivated as a data-driven product manager? I feel data analytics can be challenging sometimes, and it is demotivating.
Uh, yeah. So I get the issue of it being challenging, right? And it being demotivating as well too, right? But being able to stay motivated as a data-driven product manager, it's hmm, to be very frank, right? So you it is a recurring challenge, right? That you have to um that you have to find a way around, right? But let me just say that an assumption would be that maybe there's a knowledge gap in terms of being able to use data to get some value from your products, right? So I think one way to that you should be able to overcome that is probably upskilling. So looking at basically look out for the skills that are required for you to be able to be on top of your game in terms of getting out data from your products, right? So that's one way of overcoming challenge for data analytics, right? Then another approach is being always speaking with the stakeholders, right? So if you are always having conversation with the stakeholders, right, in terms of how you've gotten out the data and you want to basically implement that, and there's some roadblock or there's some pushback from your stakeholders, right? So in order to get around this is so basically always speak to stakeholders and carry them along all through the process. So that's some of the ways I've used to personally used to stay motivated in terms of using data to solve problems.
Okay, thank you so much, Bankole. And I believe that it is very important. Yeah, Agnes is a tricky one. You know, there are times there are just a lot of data, it's overwhelming. And like Bankole just said, you really don't want to be caught in the loop. You really don't want to you don't want to be caught in in a situation where you're fixing a problem that doesn't exist, or you're doing something that is already outdated. So while data can be overwhelming, I think another way to look at it is it is also depending on what you're measuring. For example, let me bring it a bit home. Once you've built your product, I expect that any product manager that wants to be data driven, before you launch your product, or perhaps you weren't even there when the product was being built, right? However, you can ask questions around what analytics tool have we integrated into this product, and there are a lot of them, right? Maybe we'll talk about product analytics itself as a separate topic, maybe in the near future, because I mean, I've had several product managers come to say, "Oh, I didn't know anything like that exists." Is that also part of product management? So one other thing is you necessarily need to know as something as simple as Google Analytics, right? When you embed or install it, when you're using it to track your user behavior on your own website, things like a mix panel, you've heard of probably mix panel, Netcore, Hotjar, Full Story. What these guys do, what each of these guys do, what these guys do is, or what these tools do is, there's a tracking code that you basically you speak to your front end engineers or your engineers generally. They can easily embed in the code base of your product itself. So what it does in effect is, so day one, you've launched your product. You can easily see how people are coming to the product. Oh, are people finding it hard to click a button, or are they clicking the button or no, and nothing is happening? There's a particular banking app that I use. I've been trying to create invoice on the mobile app. I've been trying to edit due date of invoice on the mobile app for the last 2 months. I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't edit it, or I couldn't edit it. And it's not like it's not editable. It's just that the button is not working. However, if they had somebody on the team, maybe a product analyst or somebody who is data driven or who's mindful of who checks their product analytics tool on a regular basis, would have seen that people are clicking this button, but this button is not responding to them, right? And they would have picked it out as a bug or a UX issue, and they would have, looked at it and solved that particular problem, right? That's one use case out of many. Some people could just even be confused about the way you have written the copy on your website, like a checkout process. Maybe the person doesn't know the difference between payment methods and payment instruments. Maybe you used big grammar, right? And people are just confused about what are they saying. So there could be little things that is making you lose revenue in different places. So again, it's something you can't run away from, right? Because let's say push comes to shove, decision needs to be made, and the EPO or somebody on the management team says, we want to discontinue this feature on this particular product. At best, maybe that's even your own favorite feature as a product manager. But if you don't have data to back your fight, there is no way you can convince that person to say, because of this feature, we have made XYZ, or this feature is the only feature that is encouraging user engagement, or this feature is the only thing that is encouraging user retention or whatever. But because you don't have that data, you cannot prove your case. So basically, and there's something we all see: let all man be a liar, but data be the only thing that will be true. So data is the only thing. If you have that data at hand, and you can see that, oh, you can see the eat map of on a daily basis, people are consistently eating this feature and they are using it, they are engaging with it. So why on God's good earth will somebody say, let's yank it off, right? So which means you yourself, you need to be up to date. You need to have your code and facts together. So whether you like it or not, you really you can't run away from it, Agnes. You just have to find a way to love it. Maybe stick to one or two tools and stick to one or two tools. And some people are very lucky. They have a very large product team where they have other people designated to that cause. That is, they have a product analyst who does all the work of analytics for them. I hope that helped you, Agnes. Agnes, you can unmute your mic or say yes in the chat room while I look through the other question. So, Bankole, there's another question. Oh, so sorry. Before I take this next question, Olufunsho's hand has been up for a while. Olufunsho, please go for it.
Thank you, Tayo. And thanks, Bankole, for the insightful discussion. My question bothers around making insights from data. And how can you, at what point as a product manager or a product owner, do you take maybe a pivot decision based on the data you've seen on your product to determine that, okay, this feature would not, possibly it's not working and we might need to pivot from it, or this product as a whole, it's not working, we might need to pivot into something else. Is there a baseline that can be matched to the data? Say, how long can you use the data to determine what next to do with respect to your product or a feature of a product?
Okay, that's actually a very great question, right? So I would say that there is really no timeline. Like there's no set timeline. It depends. It varies from company to company, right? So, but I would say that the decision to pivot or to pivot from a particular feature or product, right? There are two ways, or there are two things attached to it, right? There's the part of customer led as a part of business led, right? So the part of customer led is, oh, I release a feature, right? And for, let's say, a month after releasing a feature, right, I'm not seeing traction. So traction could be in the sense of I don't from my dashboard, I can't see people using this feature, right? In fact, it is actually causing drop off. That's on the other side of things, right? So at that point when you notice that pattern and that trend, right, I think as a product manager, it's your responsibility to start making a case for why that feature or product should be retired, right? And then on the second part of things is when it is business led, right? The second part is being that a business led is that you have a lot of people using this product, right? Maybe it's let's say it's a free product, for example. I can't think of any example now, right? It's a free product and you have a lot of people using it, right? But it's difficult for you to monetize it as a business, right? You can't, there's no way for you to monetize it. Either customers are not paying for it, right? Which is also going to be a red flag. Or you're not getting a lot of money to you're not getting a lot of revenue to actually offset some of the business expenses, right? So that, of course, is a flag that you start thinking of sunsetting or pivoting that feature to or that product to another direction, just so that, of course, you can keep your business alive, so that you can basically serve users. So there's really, just to recap, there's really no really no timeline. So it just depends on how soon or how fast the product manager can basically connect the dots from the maybe analytics dashboard, right? And see, okay, this thing that we released is not really providing value, or it's providing value, but it's just a one-way type of value, which is not impacting the business. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you so much, Bankole. That is very, very insightful. I mean, at one point or the other, really, um, the decision is to be taken to pivot a product to say, oh, this isn't working. Usually, most times it's a business decision. However, whenever that business decision wants to occur, you as a product manager would also be called to the table. And we've seen it, all of us on this call. If I tell us some applications that have taken pivots in the last few years, you would know that you've seen pivoting examples happen almost everywhere. So, I mean, we know of the Slack. The Slack that we know today didn't start out as Slack. The company itself had an online multiplayer game called Glitch. I think the name of the company is Tiny Speck. Whatever, they realized it wasn't working, they had to retire it, but they had an internal communication tool that they were using, and that's how Slack came to being. And before you know it, Salesforce bought Slack, and we're where we are today. So initially, Slack was in Slack, right? So there are times that, I mean, from the data you've gathered, maybe your user research, you see this thing isn't making money. Of course, just, it is what it is. Kill it and move on, do something else. We all know Abeg. Abeg, at least, is something that we're all familiar with. I mean, I took a quick poll of the class. I know a lot of us are Nigerians. We know of Abeg that really came out during one of the BBN seasons, and before we know it, we already now have Pocket App, slight change in different model, and everybody is still doing fine. So again, there's really no defined timeline, like Bankole rightly said. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that insightful answer, Bankole. We still have questions for you on the chat room, so I'm going to quickly take it. Somebody says, is it necessary to take, that's Adejum of Fiinfolua. Okay, Fiinfolua should be your first name. So I'll just say Fiinfolua said, is it necessary to take courses in data analysis for one to function maximally as a data-driven PM? What do you see?
Not, I would say not exactly. You don't need to take courses on data analysis, because there are platforms that are built on top of the tech that basically abstracts the technical bits of data analysis. So that's the reason why we have platforms like Mixpanel and Hotjar and the rest of those platforms, right? They basically help you abstract the technical things. You just basically drag and drop, right? And they'll do all the calculation for you. And then, of course, you have to collaborate with your front-end engineer, like front-end or back-end engineer in some cases, like Tayo had mentioned earlier. But you do not need to take courses for you to function maximally or optimally as a data-driven PM. Of course, it's always good to upskill. I'm always up for upskilling. As a product manager, I'm always advising people to basically learn as much as you can, right? From the business part of things, and also from the technical part of things. Because as a product manager, you act as an API, for lack of a better word, basically converting business requirements to technical requirements, and also technical implementation. You basically have to explain it in very simple terms to the business team, so that everybody expectation is being met. So I'm always up for upscaling, right? So of course, if you want to upskill, you can upskill, but it is not necessary, right, for you to perform optimally.
Yes, thank you so much, Bankole. Yes, it's not, but just have a curious mind, because by the time you see data flowing or dashboard or charts from the tool you've seen, just have a curious mind. Really, if you once you have a curious mind, you'll be able to get a full grasp of things, to be a data-driven PM. Thank you so much for that, Bankole. So there's another question in the chat room, although I saw that the person that had the question has left the call. Maybe there's internet issues. She's going to join back. Olatilewa says, for an app that is created to solve logistics issues for SMEs, which data analytics tool is best to track usage and feedback?
Well, from how far I know, I don't think there's a data analytics tool targeted at specific industry. I think it is still the same. It's still the same data analytics tool, right? So you can use Mixpanel to basically track usage and feedback, or usage, not feedback, really. So you can combine feedback with using another, maybe you want to use SurveyMonkey, you want to use some form of CRM tools, maybe you want to use Customer.io or Intercom to basically get feedback from your customer. So there's really no specific data analytics tool. So it depends on on of course it depends on different things, right? So it depends on you as a product manager, if that responsibility is on you, right, to define your key metrics that you want to measure, right? Then you can look out for the tools that are available that can solve that for you.
Yeah, thank you. I just saw the person that asked the question just joined back when you were mid conversation already. So Olatilewa, if you can hear us, Bankole already answered your question. Yes, I'll do a quick recap. He had said there are no specific tools for designed for specific industries. So what you see is that any tool that you're comfortable with reading whatsoever, I mean, any tool you're comfortable with. Some people have their preferences. For me, I have my preference. There are some other, there are some tools that I've used before that I feel they were too technical and the user experience wasn't good. Um, just so that I don't spoil market, so I won't mention their name on score, right? As there's some tool that I've used that I didn't think they were built for product managers, even though they were analytics tool, but it appeared like they were built for developers. So I didn't like the user experience. Some tools are better at viewing a heat map. If what matters to you is to see how people are clicking within your products, just look for a tool that has an heat map, right? And that is very detailed and broken down well. If what matters to you is just seeing the conversion flows, that is how do people move from onboarding through to when they added something to cart, and how did they check out, did they make payment? If there's if what matters to you is a tool that can give you, oh, 5 people did flow A, but going to flow B, we saw that they dropped off to 2 people, right? If that's what matters to you in your product, right? Sit with a tool that does that, right? I've used some kind of tool in the past, and some of them are a bit more complex than the other, but you can never go wrong. Not even the ones that seem complex, they will still have basic functionality that you can read and gain insight from. But just to give a wide throw out there, the names of tools out there. Of course, your Google Firebase is also always a good one. You have your mix panel. I think Bankole also mentioned mix panel. We have your mix panel. You have Hotjar. I particularly love Hotjar for the heat map session, and it also records the session of the user, so I can see the way the user is moving through my application. Of course, there's data privacy issue, but Hotjar does a good job at hiding it. Well, because the person already provided their user data, so the user attributes are not hidden anyway, so you can know the particular user, you can know their email address, whether you like it or not. They've already given you before, so yes. So Oja is a good one. A mixed panel, if you're interested in about how flows happen, where the drop-off points, mixed panel is also a good choice. I may not remember a lot of things offhand. Netcore is also a good one. Netcore basically, in most cases, are for large enterprises. Of course, you would have a very good understanding of the user behavior inside Netcore too. I think I'm running out of options. I have Amplitude. I've never used Amplitude, but I have Amplitude. That is also a great choice. There's quite a lot of them out there, and you can just do your comparison, look at your feature comparison. And some of them also come with basic plan, premium plan, pro plan, and they will be varying the features one after the other. So you can look at it and see which one works for your use case or which one works best for your product. Right. So Olatilewa, I hope we've been able to answer your question. Right. I would take that as a yes.
Yes.
All right, great. All right. If there are no other questions, and
yes, actually, yes. Thank you very much, Bankole and Fire.
Thank you, Tiliwa. I'm looking through if I think I saw a question in Q&A. 1 minute, please. Let me quickly read. All right, so Bankole, we have another question here. Does the industry determine the type of success metric to measure? So Bankole?
Yeah, actually, your products should determine the type of metrics that you measure, right? So as a product manager, right, if you're building, so an example I gave earlier was a music app, this is Spotify, right? So my assumption is that somewhere in Spotify there's a metrics for measuring how long people are listening to music on Spotify, right? So you got to be different from a logistics app, which of course there's a metrics there that will be the number of deliveries that are being fulfilled, right? Or the number of returns that are being made, right? And then of course you also come to an e-commerce website. Of course, there is the one that Tayo had mentioned, the challenge of there's of course a metrics of measuring abandonment of carts. There's a metrics for measuring the actual sales that are happening, right? So customer had to cart and made payments. Of course, so it basically varies from product to product, because as you're building your products, you kind of know you value creating moments in that product, and that's what you are going to track. And also on the flip side of things, it's also very important that you also track the negative actions too. Like, are people dropping off? Are people having issues logging in? Yeah, then you're also keeping track of the error messages too, just so that of course you know the exact issues that's occurred for that made maybe login not successful, right? And it also helps you, those messages helps you in terms of getting resolution for those things, right? Yes, so that's essentially it, right? So from in product to product, industry to industry, the metrics that you track depends on the product manager, really, right? Because of course you're the one that is defining value for the value that product is meant to offer to product to users. So of course you know what you want to track, the positive and also the negative. Negative helps you to improve on the product too.
Thank you so much, Bankole. Thank you. I mean, value moment is very key. You have to define your value moment. So, like Bankole rightly said, the value moment for a Spotify will be different from the value moment for a Jumia, right? It will be different for a value moment for a logistic application. So, it will be great if you can define what your value moment is, and that would determine what metric you would be measuring. A value moment for a traditional bank would be, oh, somebody that opened their account and funded it with 2,000 naira, because 2,000 naira would cater to their debit card and maybe charges at the end of the month. That would be a value moment for a traditional bank. Value moment for another fintech app will be different. The value moment for a Jumia would be different, right? So it would then necessarily indicate, okay, what metrics they would track. We hope we've answered your questions, Ahmed. Hamed, if you're in the chat or if you're in the room, say yes or no. If we haven't answered it, I'm not sure Hamed is still on the call, but I'm sure he would get the recording of this call. Right. Okay, if there are no other questions, I would like to say thank you to you, Bankole. Thank you so much. That was a great and precise presentation. And I mean, it was within time and precise, and I'm glad we got chance to interact with one another. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar today. We really, really, really appreciate it. Right, guys. So you can connect to Bankole on LinkedIn. His name is as it is spelled. His name is Bankole Jamgbadi. And so, yes, how to get the recording. Once the recording has been uploaded to the cloud and Google sends it back to say it's ready, you would get it. Right. So I hope I answered your question too. I think that was a Dari. Right. So Darren, you would get it within 24 hours, latest by Monday. You should get it in your mailbox so you can watch the recording again. So yes, thank you, Bankole. Everybody says thank you to you. All right. So I'm slowly bringing the meeting to a close so that we stay within. We wanted this webinar to stay within 1 hour 30 minutes. And please, if you haven't filled the survey in the chat room, Adenike on the Techlytics team had already shared a survey with us earlier. Please, because we always want to improve. We want to always learn from our users. Please fill the survey. If you feel you want to critique us, please feel free to please critique us. And if you know you have a topic or a question that you want us to talk about next time, please drop it in the survey form. It helps us to improve better. Or if you feel you don't want to have this meeting in the evenings again, you want us to start having it in the mornings, I mean, whatever you say, your wish is my command. Whatever you say is what we will do. So please fill the survey. Adenike, you can paste the link in the chat room again because it might have gone up, so many people may not see it. So please paste it in the chat room again. And yes, we will share the webinar recording with us. we would also share the notes, the speaker notes with us, so that we can we can have a good look at it again at our leisure time. So yes, I hope we've been able to answer your question. I hope you already have value. You've already gained value for this session already. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will be happy to see you in our next Bits and Bytes. The next Bits and Bytes is next month. By Bits and Bytes, I basically mean, the next webinar is next month, and we will communicate the exact date to you. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to the calls, for coming to the webinar today. We really, really appreciate you at Techlytics, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye, everyone. Say bye-bye to me too now, even if you want to unmute your mic.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Bye-bye, Tyre.
Bye, Tulua. We'll talk later.
The insightful webinar.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Thank you, GD. All right, I'll be ending the call now and stopping the recording.